Good morning, spaceman. Welcome to Space Operations Delta. Welcome to X4 Cradle of Humanity Talk. Today we have a special guest. I do not have to say much about him. He is the CEO of Egosoft, and we will have a talk together today. I hope that a lot of people are already in here, and we can start by saying hello, Bernd Lehan. Welcome on board.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Bernd, so nice that we have this opportunity to finally meet each other and have a talk with each other.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And we're as happy to see you in here. Before we start, let me just say that your game is coming out in just a few weeks. That's so cool.
Yes, March 16th.
March 16th, yeah. And you can already pre-order it on Steam if you want to. And if you're more using GOG, then you can wishlist it at the moment. It will be available then on 16th. And not only that, but also the final release of version 4.0. Looking also forward to that.
Yes, that's like how we did with basically not just the last expansion for X4, but also with X Rebirth and before already. That usually when we bring out new paid content, that we always also have a free update at the same time. And actually, most of the gameplay features and any features that we add go into the free part, into the 4.0 update in this case, and it's usually the assets, the universe expansion, the ships. Of course, that's usually things that gets most attention. New sectors, and of course the new story. That's the part that makes the paid expansion Cradle of Humanity.
Yeah, we will talk about that in a minute. Let me just say a personal thanks from my side and also from my community that you're here, that you talk with us, and for the possibility for an interview. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
So Bernd, maybe we start with a briefly introduction to X4. Maybe some people are now excited about this new release and want to see a little bit deeper what's X4, and just tell them a little bit what is your game all about.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely always the hope, that with every expansion and with every update, we also get new players into the game, both those that know the X games a little bit. And so the first question is always, what are X games in general about? And that's usually the answer to that, or the short answer to that, is always freedom in space, if you will. Like we give you a universe and you can do inside of the universe what you like. That was always like the one sentence description. Started with your one ship, upgrading it, trading, making money, putting more money into the ship. And then from then on, basically sky's the limit, or well, actually not sky, it's actually beyond sky. So there's things like building space stations, managing an empire of many ships up to whole fleets, larger ships, capital ships, but also, now with X4, of course, the possibility to walk even out of your ship and onto another one. So there's so many features, really. I can probably talk for hours, but the whole vision is that it's really providing you a universe and allowing you to do inside of the universe what you like. It's different types of players, those who prefer trading, those who prefer the fighting side, many who prefer also or like to see storytelling. That's something that is actually our newer focus, or more recent focus, as opposed to the more sandbox focused original release. X4 Foundation had also a story, but less of it, if you will. So the two expansions now add a lot more story to the universe, and that's a different approach from earlier X games, because we kind of turned it around a little bit. With X3, it was always that the original part was the game that had the more linear story, the bigger story, and then the later games were more sandbox. Here we started with the sandbox and then added more story to it. So that's new. But in general, the spirit of the game really remained. It's just that we not just updated the technology, but also fine-tuned all aspects of gameplay. I already mentioned the fact that you can now walk around. That's a big aspect. I hope more intuitive by just giving you a body. You stand up from your pilot chair, walk out of your ship onto a space station, talk to people, both for missions, for trading, for looking at your own self-built space station, everything. So we try to make it intuitive and easy to get into, and then really cater to very different types of players, from the trader to the builder to the fighter to the everything.
I think that's one of the best thing when you start in X4. I think everyone had already this experience, like you're standing on the station for the first time and seeing these big ships for the first time in person. And it did not only happen to me, but I know a few of the community had the same situation. We were just running into some cockpits. I just wanted to see how the cockpit looks, and then we flew off with the AI pilot and we're lost in space.
This I remember a review on Steam very early on when X4 just came out, where a guy basically, this happened to multiple players, that they were just walking around, just taking in the scenery, and then walked into an NPC ship, a trader ship or something, and then the ship took off and they were on board the ship, and they didn't know how to get out again. Of course, there's multiple things you could do depending on what you already unlocked in the game, but the interesting thing is how players react to this. Some say, oh, this is a bug, I'm suddenly caught on another ship, but others see it like, this is the freedom. This is also the aspect. This is also an aspect of the game. It's a realistic universe that's running there all the time, and now you are a passenger on another person's ship. I mean, later in the game you can teleport off, or you can just take the airlock and get into your spacesuit. So that it's not like you are completely caught, but it's definitely not such a controlled experience like you would have in many other games, where everything happens exactly by the book and a plot does a lot of hand-holding. We try to get beginner players and give help to beginner players, obviously. Like with 3.0, we added a really cool tutorial, flight school game start, for example, and also worked a lot on integrating more tutorial things into the missions. But it is still a huge universe, and there are lots of opportunities to get lost in it.
And we're grateful for that, to have these opportunities. You already said a little bit about it, but if you compare the work on X4 to the work on previous titles, what has really changed?
Well, the one thing that is currently special is that we are back to this mode of incremental work, where we have a running universe, we have a community that gives us a lot of feedback on the game, is constantly playing our game, and we are listening to feedback and working on that basis, but working on that platform. That's something that we had for a while also with X3, but there was a long gap in between when we worked towards X4. Like this is more than 10 years really, where you don't have that platform. So this incremental work, looking at the game, playing it yourself, finding out what's good, what could be better, what's working, what the fine tuning. This is really what I enjoy a lot, and also I think this is. In my opinion, it's the only way how you can make such a big game, because and a game that is, as I said, catering to so many different types of players. It's the opposite of what you oftentimes see as standard game design, where you have this clear, sharp vision. This is exactly how the game is, and then you can work more focused towards a single goal. Here, it's like you have to really oftentimes make observations about how does this work for all these different players. So you are making tests basically all the time. So it's this is really what we are doing. It's incremental work, and that's something that is really working very well now with X4. That's how I feel.
Okay, and how do you feel about where you are right now with that work? Is it still like, do you feel like it's still early in the process? Is it mid-game, or do we advance into late game already?
It depends on how you define the end of that thing. I mean, what is the end? Is the end then that you say, okay, now it's wrapped, we put it aside and work on a completely new game? In that case, we are still very far away from that. It could be that, so we will, in other words, continue to work on this. It's not the end. Cradle of Humanity is neither the end nor is 4.0 the end. There will be more. I don't know for sure when we work if everything we do in the future will be like safe game compatible updates, stuff like that we will have to see. But I don't know. It's hard to put a finger on. Are we at 50%? Are we at 80% or 90%? It is a finished game. Don't get me wrong. It's totally working. This is the negative spin to it that players can say when it comes out, it's not finished. It feels sometimes like it because it's so big, and I know that. And of course, when Rebirth came out, there were also bugs there. But I was actually quite happy also with with Rebirth at the release, not with Rebirth, with Foundations when it came out, as opposed to Rebirth in a sense, because there were many more bugs and many more problems at the release. But yeah, it's so big, and there's always so many ideas and visions that we can continue that I don't know. There's no simple number that I could give you.
Okay, yeah. I did not think that there's a number. But the next number is 4.0. We're advancing to that version. And we already saw the terraforming part coming out. That's a very big addition to the game. If some of you already experienced that, it's massive, material and credits-wise. So what was the driving point behind implementing terraforming?
Well, one goal was definitely to have new content, especially for the late game player, for the very advanced players, because most of our work often goes on the other side of the balance. That the beginner player, we did with 3.0, we did a lot for fine-tuning the beginning of the game, adding new activities, also the whole plot and missions from both expansions, of course, play very well from the beginning of the game. But I know also by just looking at the statistics of achievements on Steam that there are very many players who have save games with hundreds of hours and billions of credits, literally. I'm always surprised by those save games we are getting. So yeah, we wanted to have something specifically for them, and terraforming is something like that. It's not the only thing. There are other things that we are doing as well. Also balancing changes that are also part of 4.0. But terraforming is a whole new thing, and I think something that fits this idea that it's also a huge economy sink, that you can put a lot of effort into it, material effort. And of course, the outcome of it cannot be also material. So you're not doing this for the reward of money. Yeah, this is not that would be senseless. With something that costs you billions of credits, just getting out 2 billions is not really a meaningful thing. So yeah, but okay. It's an interesting activity that changes the planets visually. And also has some other aspects to it of what comes out of it, but we try to keep that low. We don't want to sell it as you are doing this to get this reward. The rewards are the minor part of it.
Okay, do you think that you're already done with configuring it, how it works, or will there be still some additions or changes to that?
Only minor, I think. I think the team is quite happy with the status as it is now. It's we are working on a little gimmick at the end, you call it, maybe. Maybe that's going in. We don't know for sure. There is certainly a couple of screws that are still being twisted. That's the point of the betas, of course. But overall, I don't think it will change in a major way.
Okay. Good. You told us to look out for another change, and you especially told us to look out for ventures. That there would be something going on with ventures in the future. Do you have something for us that...
Yeah, I cannot talk too much about it yet, because this is not going to come out together with 4.0, but we hope to have something shortly after the release, so that when players just started playing 4.0, just started playing Cradle of Humanity, that shortly after we have this in beta at least, and it will be based on the same principle of how ventures work. So this asynchronous multiplayer gameplay where you can send your ships into other universes, and they basically play missions, but it's a whole lot bigger than that. The gist of it is that we basically want to encourage team play, where that players can join together in teams, and that you can bring your friends into the game, and that you can have social interaction with each other a little bit. Yeah. So, but it's still the same principle. The idea is that we don't want to change the single player part of the game, but still have the advantages of a multiplayer game, mostly the social aspect, playing together with your friends. But it's of course dictated by the fact that it's asynchronous. It's not going to change the balancing of the game. So we still have the advantages of both worlds, if you will. If X4 would be a massive multiplayer game, an online game, then you couldn't advance so quickly. You couldn't be playing in a universe where you feel like the big mogul owning half of the universe in extreme cases, which is possible. It's we try that it's not super easy, but it's certainly possible, and in an MMO that wouldn't be. So
yeah, some of us already found a hidden UI for text messages, but we just leave it there. I would say
there's a lot more. Wait for it, and it's really cool. And maybe we can talk about it again when it's closer to release, or when it is released already in beta.
I'm down to that all the time. But something that is coming out is Cradle of Humanity, and to give a short view into that, I have this here prepared. So we will have the trailer running while we talk about this. If you didn't see the trailer, you can also watch this on the Steam page. I think it's the easiest way to go on the Steam page, Cradle of Humanity, and just watch this trailer running with audio. So talking about Cradle of Humanity, what was the most exciting part maybe to work on this new add-on?
Certainly the story. It has a really cool story and plot missions. So of course this always uses the universe. So you have the new ships, you have the new and you are returning back home. That's of course always what's special with the Terrans. So this is always a very special faction for us. It's not just yet another race in the universe. It is Earth. So you always have a chance to show our planets, the solar system here, with in all of its beauty. But yeah, it's the storytelling inside of it, and the story of those factions that's always very interesting. We have, of course, an established big backstory, as you know, with the Terran conflict, and also the books written about the conflict between the Terran and the X-universe races. So it's always fascinating to continue this into the future and to think what could happen, how does this develop. So there's this I don't know how deep I should go here about the story of the books and all of that, but it's always has a lot to do with the beliefs in artificial intelligence and the fact that the Earth basically burned its fingers developing terraforming technology with artificial intelligence in that backstory. And so a lot of the conflicts in this universe basically grew out of that. The fact that some races in the X universe are using this technology, or at least don't reject it completely, whereas the Earth forces, the Terrans, and the ATF, which even have it in the name, are always counter to this. So that was always the source of conflict in the past.
Okay,
and we continue this story, so it's interesting to see what grows out of it.
So we got like the same as with, for example, the Teladi. So we have the Terrans themselves, and then like the Ministry of Finance, which is the police force for Teladi. Then we have something like that for the Terrans also, that's an attack force or a police force or something.
Not just that, yeah. There are other. It's longer in the future, so there's more that has happened. But yeah, there are the traditional Terrans, if you will. But there's also another faction in which is not so militaristic, not so directly connected to Earth, a little bit in the periphery of the solar system, and also a little bit beyond it. And you have two game starts, which basically show those two sides. So that's in a way similar to how the Split expansion worked as well. You had also two game starts for the two main factions on that side. But there's also new enemies, and yeah, it's an interesting story, and you can start basically experiencing that story from two different viewing angles, if you will.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these game starts? Like, is there one that's more aggressive? Is there one that's more economy focused?
No, I mean, the game starts always just change the initial setting. So it's always the same game, right? So we will not, with the normal game starts at least, we will not manipulate the universe on any level. It's just your initial situation that changes. Sometimes you have a little bit more money. Sometimes you have different reputation. Obviously, if you choose a split game start, then yeah, you have different enemies in the universe. But it indirectly, therefore, also changes the difficulty level, of course. But the story is written always in a way, basically modular in little pieces, so that players can experience it in different orders sometimes. So if you, for example, start with either of those two Terran factions, you will play it slightly in a different order, because that makes more sense for this character you are playing here. But it still usually leaves most of the main story possible. So sometimes that may require that you have to change your reputation a little bit, so you have to work your way up more. That's certainly true. Like if you would play a Split and then want to play the Terran story, which is certainly possible, right? You could have bought the Split Vendetta expansion, started there with a Split game start, and now when you install Cradle of Humanity for the first time, the gates open to this part of the universe, and you have now a new sectors, and those people there may not like the Split very much at the beginning, but you personally always should have it. Yeah, it should be possible for you as a player to play all parts of the main story, but sometimes it's a little bit harder then.
You're talking a lot about the story, and we already saw that in Split Vendetta you gave some emphasis on story elements, like for example cutscenes, and also very special structures where you could also see a story happening. Talking about the Paranit, for example. You did a lot more of this type in Cradle of Humanity?
Yes, definitely. We wanted to build up on that. This was with Split Vendetta. This was a focus to play around more with all of the toys we have now. That's what I meant with platform before. X4 was a platform with a lot of new gameplay elements, like for example the spacesuit, your possibility to repair ships, to get out and open lock boxes, and so the stories are always a play field where we try out different activities, hacking, all of the things you can do in the game. And these special settings that you mentioned, we indeed wanted to build up on that with the Terran story. So there's several places where you can do that again and find little puzzles basically in the game.
Okay, story is fine all the way, but there are some things that are maybe more interesting for the X4 community, and these are ships. Big ships, strong ships, like for example the battleship. So we'll have a whole bunch of new Terran ships coming, and my question would be, do you build them on par or a little bit more powerful than the other factions? Like for example, please, one more, like for example we had with the split rattlesnake that came with 6 forward-facing guns and 4. No, yeah, 4. And doubled the amount of a behemoth. And this was a killer. So what are we looking at for Terrans?
Yeah, the idea is, of course you don't want to make the new ships weaker in every aspect, certainly. But you also don't want to totally overpower a new faction. And so it's about the identity balancing-wise of a new faction, of what that specifies then also where you are going with the balancing of each ship. Both the Split and the Terran are very strong factions. So the Split were very aggressive and pushing. So what they gain in forward weaponry, maybe at least to a degree, they lack in shielding or hull strength. So that to counter that. And with the Terrans, they always have been historically a very advanced, probably the single most advanced faction in our games, and that's still true. So technically, they are on their own level, which was always ironic because in the story they were always also the ones that were most afraid of the Xenon, and that was what we played with already in the X3 story. That while the X universe races were not as strong as the Terrans, they were already used to the Xenon. For them it's a day-to-day thing. They have them always around them. They are constantly fighting with them, so they don't have that fear. And then there are the Terrans, which have this historical fear because they once may have almost destroyed the Earth, but for that reason they have developed this new technology, a lot of military technology, including that ring, the Taurus that they had built as a total defensive measure, and so actually for them the threat was a lot should have been a lot less than for others. And anyway, this kind of dictates where the ships are going as well. So yeah, they are strong.
Okay. And the very strong ship, a new type we see with the Terrans coming, is the battleship, of course, which you introduced us in a few ways. And my next question would be if we also see battleships coming for other factions, because we had maybe a discussion on the channel that other factions could see this as a new ship type and improve themselves also to build battleships.
Well, not yet, but everything is possible in the future. We will see. Right now, the new ships are the Terran ships, so that's what the expansion brings. What we do in the future, I cannot say yet.
Yeah, so this would be a very good part to maybe do a storyline for that, introducing battleships for other factions.
We will see.
Okay. With the Terrans coming into the X4 universe, like we know at the moment in the X4 universe, will they bring something new to the table economy-wise? So will they change the economy for the other factions maybe too a little bit?
Well, we try to make a new faction, or well, not every faction, but the core factions always self-supporting. So the Terrans have to work for themselves basically, and that means that they have to have all the resources coming. It must be possible for them to sustain themselves in their own systems. And yes, they have a different economy. It works with different resources, and especially the intermediate part is a little bit shorter. They are more technology focused, so that shows also on the economy side. But still, they trade with the other races, of course. So it's always this historic development. The gates were shut down, so they had to basically live disconnected. And in this case, for Earth, for the Terran systems, this was working fine because this is a rich system, if you will. So they can sustain through a time of disconnection. So, but that's always basically when we start with designing this, the first question: what was happening during the gate shutdown? Because in other situations there can be if there is a planet that doesn't have a lot of resources, and then maybe people starved to death, and that then certainly shows also after the gates open again, that by how the factions in such a system would be. But anyway, economy after the gates open again is connected, but it's quite unique. It's different.
Okay, it's different. So we will see new parts coming in.
Yes, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about future development of X4. Can you share already some insights into the roadmap for 5.0, version 5.0?
Not much yet, other than the fact that yes, we have a long list of ideas. I actually just a couple of weeks ago, I was also going through wish lists on forums, and we have long lists internally with ideas. There's a lot of very good stuff that we want to do, and on user interface improvements always. But I rather not talk too much about it yet, because there's always a chance that we will change our priorities. It's always really balancing priorities. What is more needed, what is less needed. And the most dangerous thing is that we promise something now, and then later it doesn't get in. Maybe it doesn't get into 5.0, but only into 6.0 if there is one. I don't know. Don't take my word for that now. It's long. For now, I'm happy to release 4.0. So let's do one step after another. But there's more than enough to do.
Maybe there's one thing that you can answer already. With delivering the new versions, will they also be still delivered to owners of the base game?
What do you mean? New updates? Yeah, of course. I mean, if there will be a 5.0, then it will of course also be for free. This is for free for everybody who has X4 Foundations. So yeah, it's a that principle will remain, and we will have to see where exactly it goes. There's a couple of things that are almost certain, but yeah, we will see.
Yeah, so just asking because there are a lot of new features, like for example the terraforming, which you also can play with the main game, and more of these features coming, and so your main game or the base game will also get richer and richer.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely what we want to do, and we really hope to get people also to play longer and more, thanks to this online feature, the team playing that I mentioned. So that's definitely the very first focus after the 4.0 release, but that's not what we package into 5.0. That's basically something that would hopefully happen in parallel all the time. But yeah, so we definitely want to get people to play, no matter if they have the expansions or not.
Okay, one thing that has driven the community in the last week was the survey that you sent us about mining. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that. With the recent changes to mining, how do you prevent the economy from breaking? And I mean by you changed not only the mining spots, but also the yields and the efficiency of these spots. But how how do you see players discovering it? Because, for example, if we have the ship sensors, they will not show you resource details, just the probes. But how do you get the info where to put my probes? Like, is it like?
Wait. That's already a little bit of a misunderstanding. The idea with the probes is not that you have to place each probe into the best spot inside a region. That's possible, and if you do it, if you are lucky, if you place dozens or hundreds of probes into a system, then they will always work in your favor. So it's not like if you place them in the wrong place that your miners would go into that place just because you placed a probe there. They will compare the values and they will go to the better place. And if your probes are all placed in the bad places in a region and there are other better places in the site in the same region, they will compare your probes with the average of the region and would prefer then the areas away from the probes. So the probes cannot do harm to you, and the idea is not to pinpoint every single high yield place inside a larger region. That was a little bit of a misunderstanding because some players placed very many. The goal is more that you the first time you find a new region in general, that you can mark it for your miners to prefer that region over potentially other regions, or to compare it at least. So if you just have discovered a couple of regions in different sectors potentially, and you have miners that are already able to mine over multiple sectors, that could be either forestation or running a general mining script, then they can normally choose just based on their normal knowledge. But if you place a probe in one region, they will prefer that one region before they look at the others. So that's a way for you to direct over longer distances. But that only requires a single probe in the entire region. It's not about the fine tuning. That second level of finding the best spot inside a region, that's currently mostly meant for manual mining when you are personally in the ship. So that's where you don't need probes. That's when you are using the scan mode, where you with Shift 2, where you visualize the resources in asteroids, and you can basically see this is a better rock than that one, and in that mode you always have, of course, more. Yeah, it's you will always get out more if you do it manually, because as we basically tilt this a little bit towards favoring the player personally.
Okay, we will try that out. Not only me. I know that now.
Okay.
Okay, there is one last question from me before we go into the public Q&A. Just to make that sure for everyone that's in here, if you want to send a question to this public Q&A, be sure to mark definitely not Beats. He's the moderator in here. He sends me all the questions and I see them already popping on my screen. So one question to close it for me. You ask us this question and now we ask it you. If there's one thing you could change completely in the game, what would that be?
Well, there's always many little things that we cannot change easily because
that's not the case. We're not talking about what you can do or what you can't do, but what would you like to change?
Yeah, but there are things that, like for example, the mining balancing, which was our focus for the last couple of weeks. It would be easier for us to make more drastic changes if there wouldn't be already save games, that we wouldn't have to be save game compatible. For example, there's one thing that we were just discussing during the last few weeks as well, which was changing the efficiency of suns more, like how it affects the solar power plants. We have, with the new Terran systems, we have a more, say, logical distribution. So systems closer to the sun, our sun in the solar system, have more sunlight than those that are far further out, like the Oort cloud or something. It shouldn't make too much sense to place a solar power plant in the Oort cloud. And in the normal X universe, in the old sectors, in the core universe, there is not so much variety. I think there is almost no variety in how intensive the sunlight is. So it doesn't make much difference where you place your solar power plants. And yeah, I would love to change that. We actually could change that easily. The problem is then people who already have solar power plants in the weaker systems, yeah, what do they do? I mean, you could say it's okay. It will still, we just change it a little bit. So, but yeah, if we change it just so much that it makes an economical difference, then players would be probably motivated to tear down their stations somewhere, and we don't want to do that. With mining, it's to a degree the same thing, but with mining, at least you have ships that can go somewhere else. So you don't have to have your refinery placed directly next to the resource region. You can have miners that go multiple sectors, and it's actually usually they are even relatively quick. So that doesn't make much of a difference how far they have to travel. But with a solar power plant, there's nothing you can do. You cannot bring the sunlight somewhere else. There are no huge mirrors.
Okay. So thank you very much for answering my questions, Bernd. So I would like to go into the public Q&A if you're ready.
Okay.
I have absolutely no control about this, so let's see what we're getting. Let's have the first question. It's from Immunizer, and he asked, I have found Rebirth to be more immersive in terms of first-person player experience. Are there any plans on making X4 more immersive, story-driven, and if yes, what are they?
Oh, we definitely want to make the game always immersive. It's if he finds Rebirth more immersive than X4, then well, something doesn't work so well in that case. There's certainly differences, and I don't know where his different experience comes from. There are some inherent changes between Rebirth and X4. Which had to do with the whole setup of the universe, with allowing more things. Like in X Rebirth, you were bound to just one ship, and the whole way you docked with that one ship on a station worked totally different than it did in X4. That made a lot of this first-person experience on stations easier for us than it is in X4, where everything is more realistic, where you can land with every ship on a station and have all of those different types of docks with M ships, S ships, capital ships that have to be able to dock to stations. So that's technically much more sophisticated. But one thing, for example, and I guess that's where this guy's going, is that we dialed back the amount of interiors. In X Rebirth, you had really big interiors in stations where you could walk for many minutes to find a certain NPC and talk to them. And well, we've said after X Rebirth that basically that was a mistake to get people to have to walk such long distances. Sure, it's cool if you have a huge interior, but it has to suit a purpose, and you don't want to be forced to go through it over and over again. So for repetitive things like having to go to a trader or other things you can do often inside the same station, you don't want this meaningless long corridor. That changed therefore the nature of how interiors of stations work and look in Rebirth compared to X4. But that certainly shouldn't make the game less immersive. Absolutely not. We want it to be immersive always.
Yeah, that's a good explanation about what many people are already asking about more ship interiors than just the bridge.
That is something we have on our wish list, the wish list I mentioned before. There's a couple of really good ideas of what you could do with interiors. It's not just having an interior, you know, yeah, sure, cool. Then you have another room to go into, but it has to suit a purpose. And sure, there are ideas both for capital ships and for stations. Lots of ideas that what we could do with that.
Okay. Next question is pointing towards a future not really near, so far away, more far than 5.0, but TMLG Dutch is asking, with every faction having their own ships, is there a chance of the player faction having their own ship lines through research or missions maybe? You know that you once told us that there won't be special ships for just one single occasion, but what about player faction ships?
Have never considered that, I must say. There are, let's put it like that, there are new ideas for ships. There are lots of cool ideas for ships, and how we are going to use them, as I said, we still have to see how we do that. But usually it's getting when it is related to story in some way, like it is in Cradle of Humanity, then it's oftentimes, of course, about how you get the blueprint, and if you want to manufacture the ships yourself, or it is a ship that you don't even have a blueprint for, and you can only get it. You can only get a limited amount of those ships. I find both things interesting. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's for different types of players. The one that you cannot get a blueprint for is not so interesting for people who want to fill the whole universe with them. But it makes the ship more interesting on another level. It makes it unique, rare. Whereas if you have a ship that is good for some special role in the economy, like a new trader ship or something, then of course you need a blueprint. So we have lots of ideas, but no, a special player faction was not on my radar so far.
Well, maybe now. Who knows? Next one, from Marker Linux. There is the mystery about the software update which originated the Xenon. What caused it and why? Was it malicious or an accident?
As far as this is a question for Helge, the author of the books, who really went into much more depth with this, not just by writing the books, but also writing background fiction for it again, which is in the encyclopedia. Everybody who hasn't have a look at it, I suggest you have a look at the encyclopedia, which goes into a lot of depth with little articles. I'm talking about the physical encyclopedia, not the one that you have in the game, but an actual book, and we have it available as a download as PDF. As far as I know, it was not malicious. It was an accident basically, but maybe a unavoidable accident that happens if you build self-replicating artificial intelligence, general artificial intelligence. So that's almost a philosophical question. If that's a good idea to do, if this isn't maybe opening Pandora's box, and that a lot of that went into Helge's books.
Cool. Quick question from Gabba Woki. Cradle of Humanity will be part of the collector's edition, right?
Yes, it is. That's the second expansion that's in part of the collector's edition, yes.
If I remember right, you said in the collector's edition there will be the first 2 expansions, right? So
yes.
Maybe yes. That's the next question, again from Immunizer. Interesting. In capital letters, what about Borons?
Really? Borons? Who are they? I don't know Borons. No idea what he's talking about.
Maybe we should ask Owen.
No, yeah, I know. This is always... I've heard that question more than once. And yes, my answer is always the same. Yes, we would love to bring the Borons back to the game. We don't know when. We don't know yet exactly how it would be possible. It's more difficult than the other races because they are water creatures. They don't walk around in spacesuits. We have ideas, really, really cool ideas what could be done. We just have this very, very long list of things we want to do, and we have to sort it out. We will see.
Okay. The next question, someone from the community, I don't know him personally, his name is Xenon Slayer. How about removing the Xenon battleship? Asking for a friend.
What? He wants to what?
How about removing the Xenon battleship? Asking for a friend.
Yeah. I've heard today that there is a good battleship that he can use against it. I heard it's quite strong, and he should know actually. So I guess he knows the actual.
Okay, for everyone that doesn't understand the joke, Xenon Slayer is one of the team from Egosoft, just to make that clear. Okay, next one. Raven Tear asked a question to Bernd. Will there be an empire management overhaul feature added to structure your empire? In example, a way to make stations subordinates to other factions and stuff like that.
Station subordinates? Subordinates to other factions. So you want to give your manager to a...
Stations subordinates to other stations.
Ah, okay. A hierarchy of stations. Ah, I see. Well, that in particular was not planned so far. We have now with 4.0 a lot of new fleet management. So that is basically the focus on this managing is in particular for ships. There's the coordinated attacks. I don't know if you've played that or if you've tried that already out when you were playing the beta. It's basically gives ships automatically better rolls when they do an attack, depending on which assignment they have inside a fleet, and you can change the aggressiveness during attacks. So this is I hope this is going to help a lot with managing larger universes. A hierarchy of stations was never proposed so far. It's I don't know. I mean. That would probably change a lot about how the AI works. You have different possibilities how you can set up your trade lines. I know many players want to set up their completely self-supporting economy, and they're always looking for ways how to do that. Like, this station is producing the resources, this station is going to use them, and I want ships that only trade between these two stations. And you can do that in different ways. You can assign ships to as a subordinate and tell them. But it's and there's now also this new loop, a command loop possibility in 4.0, where you can actually set up specific commands which are always then going in a loop. That's something you can abuse for this purpose as well. It's actually not necessarily the best way to do it, because it's much more powerful. It can do other things, but yeah, just setting up a hierarchy of stations, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but we can think about it.
Okay. Next one from Mega Johnny. What's the weirdest thing that you've seen while doing an economy simulation test?
Oh, that question should go to Michael. He's our economy test guru. We've seen very weird things. The thing is that it's maybe not so weird to somebody outside. It's weird when you program it yourself and it does things that you don't expect. That's always weird, and it's that constantly happens. That you have little things unintentionally doing large things later. Like when you do these, we do these simulations which sometimes run overnight and basically fast forward the universe for multiple weeks, and then we basically have logs that show us exactly what's going on, and later we just observe how did the resources develop, what did factions build. Sometimes wars go out of hand. That's certainly something that was expected. Like, we have this war logic where wars can go back and forth, and our work is a lot in trying to control how far these wars should go. On the one hand, we want action, we want stuff to happen, but on the other hand, we don't want too much to happen. We don't want them to be completely wiped out and things like that. So that's the fine tuning then. And but we are not hard coding things too much. We try to stick away from setting too many fixed rules, like never go here or don't do well, I don't know, things like that. So yeah, we're constantly seeing interesting things. Yeah, usually of the terrible kind, like the shortage that arises out of very minor problems, like a certain specific little transporter that cannot dock, and for that reason, hours or days later, something the entire economy basically collapses because something is missing. So that means that we always have to test the game very long.
Yeah, please just don't develop a Xenon IRL. That wouldn't be good. So one question here, you mentioned the encyclopedia. Normales Einhorn is asking where we can find a physical or the PDF encyclopedia mentioned.
I know it's part of the collector's edition. I think there's this bonus stuff that you can download with the collector's edition of X4.
Can you buy it individually?
I don't think so. It may even be available directly for download on our website. I'm not sure. But it's certainly available as part of the collector's edition. So if you don't have the collector's edition yet.
Okay. Maybe we'll find out later and I will put it into the description if you watch this on YouTube.
Also now, I mean, basically if I'm not mistaken, on Steam now, if you didn't buy the collector's edition, but you did buy, for example, Split Vendetta, you can actually always upgrade without paying double. It's now a bundle, so you only buy the bonus content, and the bonus content is relatively cheap, I think.
There you go. Okay. From Tom CHQ, interesting. Could we someday be able to create our own superhighways to get back really scenic flybys of planets or shortcuts to great resource regions?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I never say never, but I don't think that's a good idea. That's too much power.
I understand. Okay. And I close it for today with a question from my mod, Definitely Not Beats. Thank you so much for managing the chat, by the way. He's asking, how do you view the modding community in terms of integrating certain features into the base game, like in previous titles?
Oh, we look at what's there. There is a good example now, right now with the possibility to survive dying. That was one of the things that we saw in mods, and we were looking at integrating that into the base game. If we would see a mod that is that makes sense to integrate like it is into the game, we would not hesitate to contact a modder and get in touch, and we did that with X3, yes. And back then we always made the experience that these guys are totally open for these kind of corporations. So the reason why we haven't done it is definitely not that we don't want to. It's usually that these things, we would do them differently. Honestly, this is of course that is there's technical reasons. We have better access to the engine, obviously, and we can do things in different ways. So it's usually what's cool about the mod is that we see what demand is there, what do people want to do with the game differently, and then depending on if it fits, of course there are these two types of mods: those that change the balancing completely, or in a way a way of cheating. Those, of course, we don't even consider integrating. But if they are fair, if they don't change, give you too much of an advantage, and it's really just a quality of life improvement, something like that, then we definitely always consider adding it. And yeah, if it technically would make sense, then we would do it. We haven't done it yet, but there's no reason for that.
I think even you told us once that previous modders now work on your team, right? Oh well, the connection is now getting a little bit bad, but it's not the problem. We still hear you. So there are modders working on your team, right?
Well, yeah, we basically half of our team came through the community. It's what you consider modding now is a little bit different, because especially the early days when the first guys came to our team, there was this thing we called the Quest DB, which was KC programming missions for X Beyond the Frontier, Extension, X2. Some of our longest employees, those that are here from the early days, came to us from that thing, which was basically modding with a different name. It was community driven. People could compile basically additional KC code on our website directly, and this is of course always good to work together with the people that already know your game and are really dedicated to this to the spirit of it. Yeah.
I think that's a very good sentence for the end. Thank you so much, Bernd, for being here, and we almost exactly 1 hour, so that was perfect. I don't have any questions. I don't see any more questions popping in from the chat, so I would say thank you very much from all the community. Thank you that you took your time for us and talking a little bit about Cradle of Humanity. We will definitely look forward for the next 3 weeks and we'll be excited.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Have a good time, and I hope that we can see us sometime in person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hopefully this whole Corona mess is over. That should be easier again as well.
We do.
Cool.
So thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy out there, and all the best wishes to your team.
Thank you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, Bernd. I will just close the call, okay? If that's good for you. And we'll maybe talk about this later on, but we're going into gaming for tonight. So we have some X4 in front of us.
Bye.
Very excited. Bye. Thank you very much, Bernd.